So let me start off by saying, esteemed viewers, that I actually really like Big Joel, and I'm going to be criticizing one of his videos a lot in this episode. But I don't think, well, one, I think overall he's a very, smart and seems like a person who is concerned with doing good in the world. And his work is actually really inspiring to me and very insightful. Hold on, I want to make sure. Sorry. Crap. Okay, I need to either clear more space or make sure I get rid of the um, uh, old videos before I start. Okay. Woo. All right. Now, just don't want the computer to be like, "Oh, you're out of space. We didn't record the rest of it." Anyway, so yeah, Big Joel. Move this back. Off to a great start. So today we're gonna. By the way, I assume that most of the people watching will probably have heard of Big Joel and probably have seen the video that I'm about to reference. It's his video on School of Life, which is a YouTube channel that I do agree with his assessment of in the broad strokes. But again, we'll get to that later. I would encourage that you go check out the video if you haven't seen it. I'll put a link in the description. It's really good overall. There's just mostly one part that bothers me. And I think it's not just his thing. It illustrates a problem with how we talk about with how we talk about incels, basically. Yeah, this is another one. It's another incel video. Yay! So, there's a couple. So, okay, like I said before, I agree with what Big Joel says in the broad strokes about School of Life. I haven't actually seen any of those videos, but from what he shows and his analysis of it, I find to be very interesting. And like a lot of the stuff they talk about is just complete bollocks. So yeah. That being said, okay, I'm just gonna say it. The part that rubs me the wrong way is there's this one of the videos he talks about is the myth of the it talks about it talks about it's funny. So he sets it up as why people are afraid of nice people. And part of me actually is obviously the video is more just why don't girls date nice guys, which is a whole ugh. I totally see the problems with that into it, but what's interesting is that I always get tricked. I always forget that that he's talking. It's gonna be one of those nice guys things, because in the broader stroke, I do think, at least in my personal experience, there are times when people being nice to me makes me go it's weird, but I think I have a predisposition, and there's probably plenty of other people who do too, that mean things said about me are more true than nice things, basically. Of course, it isn't really, the School of Life channel isn't really saying that. It's saying that girls don't like nice guys, which is such a tired thing, and it's not true, and I hate it. But I will say that a lot of times when we talk about incels, I think I think it's usually framed as, how do I put this? I think it's usually framed as they get this idea of being a nice guy out of nowhere, or it's just an excuse to justify their awful, reprehensible ideology. And there's some truth to that, but I also want to point out that the idea of the bad boy has been around pretty much for centuries. The idea that women are attracted to pieces of crap who treat them bad isn't a new one. It's not something that incels came up with. It's not true. Like I know that like I've talked to plenty of women who say that they don't like being treated badly, because of course they don't. But the you know, beyond just the reprehensibleness of pickup artistry and all that, I think there's something almost Sisyphean about it, because they're chasing an ideal of masculinity that they can never achieve. They're chasing this, you know, gender norm that they will never achieve. And again, that's not to excuse anyone's behavior, because it's awful, and what they promote is awful, and what they are doing is awful. But I will say again, oh man, what they're doing is awful, but it's such a terrible, like, this is so going to be out of context. It's going to get taken out of context. But one thing I will say is that sorry. Lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, I think a lot of times we see incel, and we try to make it work on both a how do I'm trying to phrase this right. So I think that we have a view sometimes of one person saying like supporting this one thing, or saying this awful thing, means that they must be motivated by some sort of just pure id or negative emotion or negative. I don't know how do I put this. So okay, this example might be a hand. Also maybe a script. So back to what this has to do with Big Joel's video is his this is the part that I always like die a little inside when I watch, because there's this video, you know, and this stupid nice guys video, which again is stupid, and I agree with Big Joel's assessment on that, but he takes the time to point out this person basically trying to say like saying something kind of romantic in a very stilted and awkward way, and he just like laughs like in a cringy way, and I'm kind of looking at that like, but I'm like, but I could definitely, like, to me that seems like someone who is trying to fulfill a role, like trying to say the things that they say, but that you're supposed to say in that situation, but not like but not like doing it right. You know, I can definitely see myself, you know, in that role, trying to be thoughtful, and I don't know, because obviously this isn't supposed to be like I can understand why people wouldn't like, why people don't like that, or why they wouldn't, you know, be attracted to it or whatever. But I think that part of me is just like, but like, why do you have to laugh at someone again? Like, I would totally be that guy. Look, I'm just gonna say it bluntly. I would totally, because there's this weird thing. A lot of incels are autistic, and I. It's funny because incel is short for involuntarily celibate, and I'm technically that, but I'm not. I'm not part of that whole community. But I do think that a lot of times people on the left dismiss the underlying emotions that get harnessed and used. This is the thing that the right does really well. I'm sure I've talked about this elsewhere before. They'll take a legitimate problem that people have, a legitimate problem that people have, and they will shift the anger towards something else. So anti-Semitism a lot of times manifests as legitimate anger against, the broader anger against capitalism in the state. But they managed to find a scapegoat that they can target without ever actually changing anything systemically. And I think autistic people are especially susceptible to this because especially, people like me, young, autistic, straight white cis guys, because there isn't a lot of this is something I've railed about a lot before. There's not a lot of talk about neurodiversity. There's still not a lot of talk about a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these people, A, didn't know they were autistic, or B, didn't see it as a legitimate mental condition that they have. They would see it as there's something wrong with them. So yeah, so I just, again, I agree on pretty much everything that Big Joel says, and even in that video, but him just laughing at that person who's trying to fulfill the role that he can't fulfill is kind of just hurts. I'm not even really mad. I'm just kind of I don't and there's this weird, one other thing there's so many other weird threads of this that I want to try and talk about. There's recently on Twitter, I saw someone posted a terrible person, screenshotting a terrible, I think it was an authoritarian leftist, a state communist or someone, who was basically basically going on this anti-sex worker screed, and there goes demonetization. There goes my monetization, I should say. Anyway, that was never going to get monetized in the first place. There's so much wrong with it. This person was sex work is a patriarchal institution, and that's why we need to crack down on all sex workers. And I was like, wait, what? But why? Well, first of all, you're assuming that all sex workers are women. There are male sex workers, and there are non-binary sex workers, etc., etc. Secondly, I feel like this is kind of victim blamey. There's a ton that's wrong. There's so much that's wrong with the argument, and tons of people had already said it's one, you're a guy who's saying that we should crack down on a predominantly, or not predominantly, but a institution that is associated with femininity. That's what I should say. Two, you're advocating for cracking down on sex workers, not actually trying to make things safer for them and not letting there be exploitation and also one thing this guy said that's the main thing I want to focus on is the idea. He's like, oh well, if you're you'll need to be a nice person to he's like, oh, if you want someone to sleep with you, you should just have to become a better person. And I'm like like, why are you like you seem to be working off of an assumption that the that that you're still the framing of this is still sex is a reward for men. It's just a reward for behavior that you like as opposed to behavior that the right likes. And it's like it's not. It's like, and I mean, I think of myself as a pretty nice guy, and it's funny because like I have like never asked someone out. Like I've never asked someone I liked out because and I have been told that people do like me, in a romantic sense of ways. In the past, I didn't really notice because a lot of times we're working off of two different frameworks. I have a hard time picking up on the subtle signs, the codes, and but the reason that I have, I'm involuntarily celibate is what I'll say. Just to avoid the stigma, not the stigma, but the assumptions baked into the abbreviated version is what I'll say. So sorry. It's not that I'm not saying that it's because I'm just okay, Jekyllstein. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is the reason I think that I've never I am terrified of this these social interactions because they are not built for me. They are not built for my they aren't built for my brain the way I think. And I think I can understand why people would take that as why am I I know that I'm a good or I think I'm a good person, but nobody seems to recognize it. I mean, as funny because people have actually told me I'm a good person in times when I explicitly did not think I was. But the problem is more again if we could, the problem isn't feminism or whatever. The problem is neurotypical oppression or whatever, ableism or whatever you want to call it. It's this social code that is built alongside that is built along neurotypical lines. And that actually brings me to another kind of half issue I had with Big Joel's point, which again I agree. In one of the other videos, for those of you who don't know, he talks about a video by the School of Life where they talk about how people who go to parties are bad, and it kind of gets, and Big Joel kind of frames it as oh well, some people like to go to parties and that's fine, and it's weird to pathologize people who do like to, and I do agree that people who like to go to parties aren't evil, and it's weird to try and make it out like there's this cabal of party goers who are secretly controlling the world. But I also think that Big Joel makes it sound like parties don't have high stakes, and I've been in parties, they feel like life or death to me. That's probably over dramatic, but I love melodrama. But it's they do feel like they have stakes to someone with social anxiety. basically, what I'm saying is, incels, come join me in making a better place for autistic people and people with social awkwardness, and not um, a so, oh boy, and not one where you are trying to force people to like you, rather than make a world where people can not fear you and then like you, rather than just forcing them to pretend to like you out of fear, is I guess what I'm saying. Wow, I am even more unfocused in this video than I am with my other ones. Wow. I guess, again, I would recommend that you just watch Big Joel. He makes good stuff, and I agree with the vast majority of things. I just think that a lot of times I think that that this is seen as a purely like as pure, people talk about how Jordan Peterson is, just to borrow a phrase from ContraPoints, whipping the neckbeards into shape. And I think that there is some truth to that, but I also think that I think that we mistake. I think this is an individualistic problem. I think it's people have said, told themselves, you need to, clean your room and go to parties, and, people like you, and it's like, I don't think they do. I do sympathize with people who, understandably resent those types of conversations for people who, frankly, have no idea what they're talking about. This is one of the reasons why I think ContraPoint's video resonated with me, because she does understand, at least on some level. I think I criticized her a bit for similar things, but she, I think, understands more that, the reasons behind this, rather than just the problems. So I am going to leave you the quote. I forgot to pull this up beforehand. Although, wait, is it already? No, okay. So I want to leave you with a quote from a man named Randolph Bourne, who a bunch of quotes, actually, probably, from his essay. Oh wow, coding overloaded, yay! This frame rate is pretty stable. So he wrote. He died in 1918 from the Spanish flu, and he was physically disabled. I don't think he had any mental, cognitive. I don't think he was neuroatypical. Not that I'm aware of. Anyway, but some of the stuff he talks about in his essay called "Handicapped" is weirdly, it felt like I could have written about myself. So for instance, he is never confident of himself because he has grown up in an atmosphere where nobody has been very confident of him, and yet his environment and circumstances call out all sorts of ambitions and energies in him, which, from the nature of his case, are bound to be immediately thwarted. These are selective quotes. This isn't the whole thing. It thus takes the deformed man a long time to get adjusted to his world. Childhood is perhaps the hardest time of all, as a child is a strange creature in a strange land. It was not through any cruelty or dislike, I think, that I was refused admittance. Indeed, they were always very kind about inviting me. But it was more as if a ragged urchin had been asked to come and look through the window at the light and warmth of a glittering party. For at the bottom of all the difficulties of a man like me is really the fact that his self-respect is so slow in growing up. Accustomed from childhood to being discounted, his self-respect is not naturally very strong, and it would require pretty constant success in a congenial line of work to really confirm it. But at the beginning, he rarely makes allowances for himself. He is his own servant. He is his own severest judge. He longs for a strong will, and the experience of having his efforts promptly nipped off at the beginning is the last thing on earth to produce that will. Let's see. Life, particularly, if he is brought into harsh and direct touch with the real world, is a much more complex thing to him than the ordinary man. Many of his inherited platitudes vanish at the first touch. Life appears to him as a grim struggle, where ability does not necessarily mean opportunity or success, nor piety sympathy, and where helplessness cannot count on assistance and kindly interest. Human affairs seem to be running on a wholly irrational plan, and success to be founded on chance as much as anything. But if he can stand the first shock of disillusionment, he may find himself enormously interested in discovering how they actually do run, and he will want to burrow into the motives of men and find reasons for the crass inequalities and injustices of the world he sees around him. He has practically to construct a world of his own, and explain a great many things to himself that the ordinary person never dreams of finding unintelligible at all. He will be filled with a profound sympathy for all who are despised and ignored in the world. When he has been through the neglect and struggles of a handicapped and ill-favored man himself, he will begin to understand the feelings of all the horde of the unpresentable and the unemployable, the incompetent and the ugly, the queer and crotchety people who make up so large a proportion of human folk. So I don't know. I guess that just... I'm closing with that because, well, one, it's much less scatterbrained and you know, like, I feel like this video is even more just like my mind's all over the place than my other ones. So if there's anything that felt unclear or kind of weird, let me know, and let me know in the comments, and I'll either respond in the comments or do an update video. But I also think that it shows how, you know, if you don't fall down the incel rabbit hole, you can find another way to find meaning and happiness. So check out Big Joel. If you're watching Big Joel, thanks for making your great content. I do have a couple criticisms about some things, but overall, I think you do good work, and please, you know, respond, I guess. If Big Joel's not gonna watch this, who am I kidding? He's got better things to do. Again, this isn't supposed to be like, again, like, the problem is more societal rather than individualistic and all that. Again, like, this is not like the stuff that incels, like, I feel like I need to just specify the stuff that incels believe and advocate for is absolute garbage and should not be even considered. But that doesn't mean that their emotions aren't the emotions that are hijacked to get them to that conclusion are worthy of derision in the same way that their ideas are. So I guess that's it. Again, I might continue this conversation at some point. Again, if you like understood what I'm saying perfectly fine, you know, please let me know, because right now I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm coming off as just like raving and like, I don't know. So yeah, let me know what you thought in the comments. Please criticize me if what I've said was worthy of criticism. Go watch the videos I was referring to. You probably should have already done that if you hadn't seen them before. And let's see. Yeah. Be nice to each other. Fight inequalities and injustices. Don't let the right hijack your legitimate concerns and use them in a way that won't help you. Alrighty. And, you know, if you like the video, give it a like. You know, subscribe and ring the bell if you want to be notified when I do more. I've already asked for your thoughts in the comments. All those help with the algorithm, so I'd really appreciate it. and ring the I don't know, ring the bell. Links in the description. Twitter and Letterboxd. Share the video with anyone you think would like it or be helped by it or whatever. Alright, guys, I've been Jekyllstein Gray. I'll see you in another video. Bye-bye!